right, y'all, here we go. We're talking about Black History Month and Black education. Glad that you can join us. It's a special session for Coffee and Chat with Rev Bruce for Black History Month. Let's get into it. Black History Month is Black education, and I want to get into this as specifically as possible and limit any nonsense and lack of understanding with that before we go on. And so when we talk about Black History Month as part of Black education, this is what we mean. It is connected and rooted in Black education, right? Its origins come from Black education. And so, ergo, Black education is at the center and the core of Black History Month. And so it does include the culture, the food, and the heritage, and the experiences, that collective community of being Black and the diaspora and all of who we are in our Blackness. But it is centered on Black education, not just showing up and doing the things that we know as far as having parades and cookouts and things of that nature, but also educating from generation to generation what the Black experience has been. And so Black History Month is Black education. And so it started from a Black educator. Let's be real. Black educators are connected to Black History Month simply because it started from a Black educator. There's nothing else that can take away from that. Black History Month was started by a Black educator. It was started by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who is known as the father of Black history. You might know Dr. Woodson from his famous book, The Miseducation of the Negro, right? And so when we talk about that, we're talking about a Black educator started what we know as Black History Month. And so Black educators have a powerful position when we talk about what Black History Month is and how Black History Month can be incorporated into anything that we try to put together as far as a program, as far as an event, as far as training and teaching. Black educators should be the centerpiece of that, and Black education should be right there at the core of it so that the youth can learn, the children can learn, the elders can recall and retell stories. And so when we talk about it as connected to a Black educator, this didn't even originate as a month. This didn't even originate as an entire month. This originated as Black History Week, and it eventually evolved into Black History Month, okay? And so when we talk about it, we're talking about, here is a Black History Month program that was put together between what we know as today President's Day, as well as Frederick Douglass's birthday. And so not only the birthday of Lincoln, right, who was beloved by African Americans as being the great emancipator, and then we also have Frederick Douglass, who was known as a voice that had prominence in the abolition of slavery as an ex-slave, as a runaway slave, as an abolitionist and activist, and then as one who was politically active and socially active in working towards the uplift of African Americans. And those were the bookends of what Carter G. Woodson utilized to put together what we know as Black History Week. And so when we look back at this, Black History Week had the eventuality of becoming Black History Month because it was originally placed within February, right? Because of both Lincoln a connection to Lincoln as the great emancipator, and Frederick Douglass as one of the most prominent voices from the Black community at that time. And so this is early 20th century when we're talking about the origins of Black History Week, right, with Dr. Carter G. Woodson, that eventually became widespread as a cultural celebration for African Americans as a whole that has become Black History Month. All right. It's just like when we talk about Lift Every Voice and Sing. That wasn't something that was broadcasted out to everybody else. That was something that was contained for a program, right, that those brothers were writing a song of celebration for their choir for a program at that school. Back then, school was connected to the church in the Black community, right? We were still talking about segregation. And so that was part of the connection to, God of our weary years, God of our silent tears. That's why they could do that as Black educators, right? And connect it to the Black theological perspective of Lift Every Voice and Sing. And so that's part of it. When we talk about things are put together as a program and it's very localized, and then it becomes widespread, sometimes we forget the origins of it. So the origins of Black history, the Black education, right? And it was started by a Black educator, and we cannot get away from that. And so Black educators are part of Black History Month in the sense of they have to take a role, they have to take a key role, they should take a leadership role, and they should be involved with input on what Black education and Black History Month programs look like. I don't care if you're the only African American at your school. I don't care if you're the only one who is trying to get into places where you are, the only one there. You're the only Black. You're the only Black woman. You're the only Black male. I've had that experience plenty of times working in social programs and educational programs where sometimes you're the only one. But guess what? That voice is needed, right? In an educational setting, in a social setting, as a Black educator, that input is needed so that the history is portrayed accurately, so that history is portrayed with the end goal of people walking away with a sense of understanding of what is Black culture, what is Black history, what is Black heritage, okay? And it's more than just the music, but the music is a part of it. It's more than just the food, but the food is a part of it. It's more than just the fashion and style, but all that is a part of it. We cannot forget from a sociological perspective what makes a society, what makes a culture, what makes a quote unquote community. We've got more than just a geographical identification. We've got more than just the limitations of, well, these are Black folks that are over here who had this generational experience. It surpasses all that when we talk about the overall history and culture that can be contained and captured in what Black History Month is. We've got to look at it with a wider lens, a broader lens, and see, okay, in the landscape of Black history, what are we going to try to capture in this period of time? And what I have to say before moving on is, let's be real. Let's be real about this, right? When we talk about Black History Month and its origins, we get this thing about, why is it the shortest month? Why is it the shortest month of the year? Why February? Why? As I shared, that when Carter G. Woodson established it, this was a local program, right? for Black History, there was a week, and that week was selected as between the birthdays of Frederick Douglass, you got George Washington, you've got Abraham Lincoln, right? You've got the first president, right? You've got the great emancipator with Lincoln, and you've got the most prominent Black voice in Black history up until that time in the United States, Frederick Douglass. So when you ask, why is it that month? That's how it started. And so when you build something, you build from its foundation. Its foundation was in February. So we can't say, well, the government did it. It's a conspiracy. We can celebrate Black history anytime. But this is what that program was about when they created that. So what should Black educators do? What can Black educators do differently during Black History Month? Incorporate what's Black culture that is still being carried on today. Bring Black culture into the schoolhouse. Bring Black culture, Black literature, right? Black poetry. How many schools are celebrating Black Poetry Day, which is in October? How many schools are celebrating Black Music Month? How many schools are celebrating all of these different things? Black art as a celebration. How many schools are actually celebrating it, recognizing it, and taking it forward? Use Black History Month as a springboard to move into other studies. I mean, come on. Here's a simple thing. If we went beyond just the list of Black inventors and got into Black technology and seeing how many Black tech companies are there? How many Black CEOs are there? How many Black congressmen and congresswomen are representing states and regions within the United States, even on a state level, right? We go mayors, governors, all that. How many are politically involved versus what we had during the Reconstruction? Let's do that. But then also, okay, do the research. How many Black businesses are active today? How many businesses that are Black are operated by women? How many businesses that are Black are operated by men, right? We can go into different areas of Black culture, Black history, and their involvement within different realms. Are we talking about Langston Hughes? Are we talking about A. Philip Randolph? Are we talking about, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman? We cover a lot of the same folks. Or are we talking about Fannie Lou Hamer? Are we talking about Ella Baker? How many times have we heard Otis Moss or Howard Thurman presented, right? We hear about Ralph Abernathy, we hear about Martin Luther King, but what about those gentlemen, right? How many times have we heard, about Zora Neale Hurston? But have we talked about Dorothy Height? How many times have we heard about Rosa Parks, right? We can't downplay her contribution, but do we talk about the other contributions of other individuals, or do we keep it still at the select few that we've been talking about for ages and ages that, become redundant, right? We still need to recognize them, but we also need to recognize that our history is beyond just a select few that have made it on postage stamps. And so let's get into it accurately and honestly, and talk about, as Black educators, how are we doing something different during Black History Month, right? Think about this, just as one example. Teaching hip hop as part of Black culture. Are we doing that? What's the influence of hip hop? What are the different segments of hip hop? How has hip hop influenced the fashion industry? Beyond music, how has hip hop influenced language? How has hip hop influenced communication? Does this generation, even among suburban children, speak with a different cadence because of the influence of hip hop? Have we looked at that? Have we studied that? Have we gone into that? Has your education changed based upon the attention span of your students? If they can memorize the lyrics of a song that's 2.5 to 3 minutes, how come they can't recall what you just taught, showed on the screen, and just repeated 3 times in a 5-minute span? Because guess what? Maybe they're not into it as much. And so as Black educators, we need to see what are the things that are the hooks, right? What are the things that are the hooks that get our children's attention, that hold our children's attention, and that can connect them to Black History Month. You have the potential to have input because of the power position you have as a Black educator to make Black History Month real, right? The hip hop example is just that. It's just an example. It's just an example. But what I want you to understand is at the end of the day, Black History Month is Black education. And the connection that Black History Month has to Black educators means that Black educators should be influencing and having a high degree of input into what Black History Month programs, events, celebrations, all of that look like. If the city is hosting a Black History program, there better be some Black educators involved in that. There better be some Black educators involved. If the county is hosting a breakfast in honor and celebration of Black culture, there better be some Black educators involved, at least on the committee, to do something about that. If that's not happening in your community, you need to talk to somebody about that. You need to talk to somebody about that and ask why. Ask why. Why or why not? Those are the 2 questions you could ask. Why isn't it happening? Or why are Black educators being excluded and not included in having input in what Black History Month looks like in this arena? At the end of the day, Black History Month is Black education. And when we accept that and look at that clearly, we'll understand with Black History Month being part of education, we understand that the wake-up call is for all of us. And the wake-up call is for us to wake up and assume our roles and get into position and play our roles, particularly as Black educators. Black educators have a unique position, particularly with Black History Month, because Black History Month originated, it came from a Black educator. And so as we explore Black History Month this year with Coffee and Chat with Rev Bruce, we're actually going to be taking some time out to look at Black education, Black culture, Black history, and what it really means for us. Amen.